All right, so this is the second chapter. All right, so I want you to pay close attention to the information here because it's going to be very imperative, okay? But again, I'll send you this particular PDF. You'll have it, right, in writing, but you also have me, all right? I want you to also use me because most times I know, or sometimes at some point, I also, during the day or the evening, I'm unable to answer your call instantaneously to answer any question, but most of everything that I'll tell you, as opposed to, or other than, items that are, case by case situations, they are going to be in this video, right? They're going to be in this one and the initial one that I sent you, okay? So if you're watching this for the first time, keep in mind that there's a full objection in sales, okay? Training course that I want you to dive into as much as you're diving into this. Play it over and over again. Spend each day. If you spend the next 21 days, okay, watching, especially the sales and objection one, watching that every single day, you'll catch on something so much that it'll be part of you and how you operate, right? And it's very important because at this point, sometimes I can't even feel my own self. But everything that comes out of my mind and head just comes up because I've been doing this for so long. It's ultimately part of me, okay? So just keep it in mind. I want you to have this information, have the PDF, but I need you to use me enough. Just press play on your PC. I'll upload this on YouTube. It'll be private, but it'll be just for you, of course, and the team. Use me and play me and listen to me, okay? And I promise you, something will give as much as it did for me, all right? In fact, I wanted to give more for you than it did for me. Okay, so your daily operating system, okay? Now, how to start your day in the morning. This is very simple. I'm going through this. Don't think this is for A or grade 1, 2, or 3. It's simple things, but it's basic things you need to understand today. How you ultimately start your day, again, whether you do this full-time or part-time, right? You need to have a pen and paper. You need to have a full pen and paper, okay? I'm going to tell you to use a blue one. I won't tell you right now, but use a blue one. Use a white piece of paper or book. If I had one right now, I'll probably do somewhere inside of my house. But have a pen and paper, a blue one, and write down certain things that you need to accomplish today, especially ones that are sales related. If you're someone who has a property you want to sell or rent, said call me back or message me at this particular time. Write those items down. Of course, when it happens, so you remind yourself. But make it a point in the morning. You write the items that are going to mean a lot to you, which are sales related. Okay, write them down in a format where you can tick it off as done. Okay, and spend the entire morning going through these and accomplishing one in each of them. Right, whether you call the list a success list or daily task success list or daily task list, but you want to itemize items that you're going to be accomplishing very early in the morning that are sales related. Okay, when I say sales, I mean they're going to bring in income to you. Okay, so checking your emails, for instance, should not be there. Okay, putting away or packing away keys, because you have a viewing later, could be, but that's ultimately quite minuscule to what I'm referring to. If there's an item of you calling the next 10 people who own a property, 10 or 5 million rand property in an estate, and you want to call them now, or their numbers were on voicemail yesterday, put those first and do those hard things first. Okay, it's very important that you do the sales related items first before anything. When I wake up in the morning, whether it's 4 or 5 and I'm done working out, the first thing I do is I open my book and I think about the people who ultimately wait for me or who have money that I want in their pocket, and I have what they want, which would be in this case a property. Those are the people I contact first. If I needed to complete an application for you, I need to have you agree on a particular contract or the terms, etc. My first dial and my first point of contact is you. It's not, the one who ultimately is a bit more colder than the warm or hot lead, right? It's the hot lead that I want to get into first. Then I want to take it down from hot to warm to cold, and of course, the game is to convert the cold into warm into hot, right? But you see that on the next slide. Okay, and how to build a daily call list. So again, it's pretty easy. Either myself or Joey or whoever's responsible for the platform that we use, which is Virtual Agent and Lightstone. Okay, we'll take you through, or maybe I will. In fact, I will. I'm going to shoot a video or I'm going to record how do you actually extract landlord contact details. Okay. And you can then have the information or the login details enough for you to do it yourself, and you'll be able to extract landlords again and dial them, okay, within a span of a couple of hours within a particular day, but you'll target the buildings you want to ultimately call, or the streets you want to call, the neighborhoods, and you'll be able to get access to those landlords, right? Give them a call and, you know, ask for their business, because really that's what you're going to be doing every single day, okay? And how you do that is you extract the people, you extract the contacts, you use again a pen and paper in a book, whether black or white at this point, but you write the person's name, right? So if you're writing Herbert Mayer, for instance, you write Herbert Mayer's, you know, as his name, and you put his number right under his name, and then you'll be ready to take notes when you speak to him on the phone, right? Because what's going to be very important is that you're going to have to be on the phone, listen to someone and take notes, so that when they get to a point of the conversation where it's your turn to speak, you understand what they would have said in the past 2 minutes. Because trust me, you know, if you and I talk on the phone right now, okay, and you're not ultimately have a pen, if you don't have a pen and paper in your hand, you're going to forget some parts of what I say to you, right? And I'm going to believe, or think that this guy's not really listening to me, he's not paying attention. But to be honest, in this day and age, no one really pays attention, because our attention spans are quite short, you know, based on the fact that we're scrolling each and every day, we consume information differently now, and in a very fast manner. But the point is, for you, it's going to be very beneficial that you have a pen and paper. And keep this in mind, never use a computer. Pen and paper, write the person's name, write their number, and be ready to write down notes when you speak to them, okay? So keep that in mind. Okay, so there's a 3 leads category, and 3 lead categories, right? It's hot, warm, and cold. Okay, hot, the people that I'm referring to, they're the ones who ultimately have agreed so much that you got into a point where you now need to put their agreement on paper, right? Or you've gotten to a point where they have agreed, they've signed the offer to purchase or the lease agreement, right? And you now have invoiced them or need to invoice them. Whoever is at the verge of pulling the trigger, which in this case really means is giving you their money, right? So exchanging the money for what you said you have for them. Those are the people who are hot, where they're on the verge. So that can be from the time where they've agreed to the terms. You just need to put those terms on paper. Once they've agreed to that, they're pretty hot, right? They've said yes to you. You've, of course, used the information I shot on the previous sales and training course, which shows you how to handle someone's objection and close them to say yes, right? Once you get to a point where you've used that information, and again I say that because I want you to go back there and study that information, because it's going to help you get to this point. Otherwise, if you don't know how to handle anyone's objections or close a deal, you won't even get to a point where you have a hot or warm lead, right? So the biggest takeaway from this is that you need to be able to nurture the people that you have, from cold to warm to hot, right? And how you deal with the hot is to attend to them first, because you want, they ultimately have agreed and got to a level where they're ready to give you their money. Okay, and you nurture them very differently than you do someone who's warm and who's cold. Okay, now someone who's warm, of course, is someone who ultimately has come to you, or they've said yes to you for the first couple of minutes, or first couple of attempts. They've said yes to you for something, right? Yes, they'd like to, but there's something that's holding them back, right? That's someone who's warm. They're ultimately on the verge to do business with you, but they need a bit more confidence to actually choose you. Now, when I say that, I mean in your case, you're there because you want to rather sell their property or lease out their property. So they're warm to you doing it, but there's certain things they need to understand, right? Now you attend to those people, but of course you start with the hot and you move to the warm. So in the morning, you attend with the hot. Once you've either made contact with those people, you move on to the ones who are, you know, also somewhat there to do business with you, you know, and you know, you nurture them until they get to a point where they're hot. Now this can take a day or two, a week. You know, for me at this point, it takes less than a day for me to get into contact with someone enough for them to say yes. In fact, I always come into attack, so to speak, assuming that the deal is done or ultimately we can do business. And more times than not, because of my energy and my expertise now, I always have leads that are hot. Right? I turn them to cold and hot in a minute. Okay, I can tell you a story, but I'll leave that for maybe the next slides. But to cut it short, is I'm at the point where I can turn any lead into warm if they want to do business anyway. And then cold leads, of course, are people who've never heard of you. You didn't know where to call them, but you're calling them because you know they own a property. Okay, I won't divulge too much in this, but my point is that those are people who don't know anything about you or why you're calling, but you need to get to the point where they're comfortable enough to do business with you and move from cold to warm. Okay, awesome. Now we'll go to the blocking system. So same thing I said previously, attend to your contacts and leads at a particular time in the morning, and make sure that time no one calls you. Sometimes I don't answer my phone calls all the time, especially when I'm doing something outbound, because that's sales for me, and I make money on me contacting people. Okay, money really is never, you know, some pie that ultimately comes up, you know, or business doesn't just come up because you're the greatest. You know, business comes from people, right? And ultimately doing business is a contact sport. So you do business when you contact people. So my point is that it's very imperative that you take time to block out anything else and just contact people. Okay, so the blocking system ultimately relates to that. Okay, scheduling some time so you can prospect, and other than, you know, fiddling or doing something else, right? Directed 2-3 hours, you're going to call 100 people, and even when you get voicemails, you're going to leave a voice note or leave something, and ultimately get that person to know that, hey, you know, you've been wrong by who. It's just quite. People appreciate knowing exactly who's trying to call them, and you know they'll do something when someone gets in contact because there's something. There's always an opportunity, especially in this business, right? Also, viewing preparation. Now, it's very important. Okay, now we'll always, of course, have these conversations, but you know, getting to appointments. It's a minor factor that you do today anyway with people that you're friends with and colleagues, but it's just preparing, you know, for an interaction, being on time, especially when it comes to viewings at this point, being on time, being presentable. Okay, there are certain things that are sales related that I've gone, of course, and shot the training video, which I want you to take note of, but preparing for your interaction with the person that you're ultimately showing the property or you're viewing the property, okay, just requires for you to be on time, to be presentable, and you know, to be courteous within your interaction, but to also understand the sales aspect of it, because you know, if you do not know how to handle people's objections, especially when you interact with them, it's very important that you know how to handle their objection, because that'll help you ultimately get to the close. Okay, so go back to the training that I shot on training on handling objections and closing transactions. Okay, and mash that up with this part and the rest of them anyway. Okay, so track metrics. You all need to take a picture of this. You have the PDF. Okay, just note down these. We'll deliberate on them, but these are points on how. Or really what I want to spread out to you is that I want you to track your metrics, especially with the people that you call in, and how many of them you were successful in getting, moving them from being a cold to warm or to a hot lead. Okay, it's very important for you to know those metrics. And closing the daily loop. So this really means at the end of the day, you're ultimately preparing for the next day. Okay, but by you doing this, you're ultimately taking the time to review the things that have transpired that particular day, to ensure that you haven't missed anything, there's no one that you haven't gotten back to. Okay, because by the time that you leave that for the next day, that person may have fizzled from warm to cold, or from hot to warm to cold, and you lose. I'll tell you an instance where one Sunday morning I was in my office sitting, and I got a call from someone who wanted a property, and I acted so fast, so much that I gave all the information and she was ready to move with me instantaneously. Unfortunately, right, because you know, I take full responsibility, but we weren't able to actually serve that person within that, you know, that particular time that I had assured them we could, and I thought, you know, it was a done deal, but something held us back from actually being able to get keys for this property. But that particular person fizzled down from being hot to warm to cold, and you know, they never bought with us. And you'll get many interactions like this or occurrences like that if you do not stay on the ball, and if you ultimately do not you know, close off interactions within that same day, as opposed to leaving them for the next day. Okay, how to know that you had a productive day? Look, you'll take these stats and you measure them against what you've done. They're not really important. What's really important is that you've handled the most important things that are so related every single day before your day ends. Okay, now I'll leave you with this. Amateurs rely on inconsistent bursts of inspiration. Outstanding property practitioners execute predictable daily structures and elite metrics tracking. Ensure every quarter is highly profitable, which is why we're going to end this quarter off with the bang.